had, just as I looked up, it gave me a flash from that movie, A Dead Poet Society. And he invites all the students to come and stand on the desk and look out at the room. It's quite a unique view. I just wanted to start off saying, first of all, that this wrapping cloth was a gift from Tokuyu Sensei. So Kaku, as if he wasn't already in the room, he's in the room. This week we have had some brilliant Dharma talks. Yesterday, Fusho reminded us that our practice is ordinary and not holy. There's nothing to worship. Maybe the only thing that we worship is the Nespresso machine. Jisei reminded us of Avalokiteshvara's compassion and how we can hear the sounds of suffering with every cell of our body, not just with our ears. Gesho brought the wonder into the room, as if it wasn't here already also. And it made me think of Einstein's quote, where he said, either you live your life as everything is a miracle, or everything is not a miracle. Either way is true. And Miyoko, I was thinking if Mumon was still alive, he would say, Miyoko opens her mouth and shows her heart and her gallbladder. And she reminded us to be curious to the things that arise and to stay soft with them and to take care. And then on the first day, Shinryu Roshi gave us some historical context about the Vimalakirti Sutra, and he also gave us all a koan. I wonder if we've been working on that koan. Have you been thinking about it? How do you stop a Zen retreat? As I was looking back on the week, I realized that the Zen retreat stopped for me on the very first evening when we started the chant. It was angelic. I don't know how we've been able to maintain this full yet very delicate sound. I thought it was very unique this week, and the whole week has been like that. Every time we chant, the retreat stops. Every time I pass an altar and I see the flower arrangements, and I just look at the colors. Or if you happen to ever be in here when we're not sitting, and the Chidans are backstage and you hear them working, you can tell something good is going on back there. Patting down ash. Picking out the incense pieces. The servers, I just want to share my deep gratitude for the amazing, sincere work that's going on in the dining room. I was fortunate to be able to be back there with them the first day, and I didn't see a Zen retreat. I just saw right at the tables, filling the hot water, squeezing the lemons. When we take outdoor kinhen, I was thinking I was just marveling this morning at the sounds. They're so subtle. The sounds of our feet touching the gravel, along with the wind and the birds and an occasional garbage truck. And Shuso, leading this week in such a solid and yet soft way, just holding us, and I think that's a perfect form, and also thinking kind of the theme of my talk, how we can be solid and soft at the same time. When we're standing in the tea room for Samu, sweating and chanting, and then listening to Shuso's direct words, there is no Zen retreat. My old piano teacher, Sophia, that I used to speak of quite often, was no longer with us. She used to talk about how you don't play the piano with your fingers. What's she mean? How could you not play the piano with your fingers? I think, but her whole point was that we use our fingers way too much when we play the piano. And if you think about your fingers and your hands, they're these delicate, small little bones. And you actually don't really have to do very much to make a sound. All you gotta do is drop on the key and a sound comes out. So obviously it can't just be soft, right? If it was just there needs to be some tone. There needs to be something solid. But where's that edge? Where's the edge when it's becoming too hard, too rigid? And then on the other side, becoming too soft. She would say that why would we put all the stress on these muscles in our hands when we have these big muscles in our back, in our butt, in our legs that can help us create this sound? Those big muscles that playing a key is just like blowing a feather. It's so simple. So where can we find that help in our practice when we're here? Where can we find that? Where is there something that's already very solid and strong that can support our practice with ease? And I kind of hate to say it, but I think it's in the form. So here we are in the 6th full day of Sesshin, and it's safe to say that we're in it right now. We're swimming in it deep, and these forms have been going on all week, all kinds of forms. It's just like it's never ending, right? It's like you think that once you get up off the cushion, it's a break. So what have you noticed your relationship to form has been this week? I think that there's a very wide spectrum of ways that people relate to form, from being very, very obsessive about tiny little details, to just downright loathing, despising it, wanting to not do it out of rebelliousness. So I wanted to bring us back to the very first form we ever learned, which was following the breath. The very first time you came, perhaps, to a beginning instruction day, and we were given the instruction to sit and just count our breath. And I'm remembering a long time ago reading Pema's children's book, When Things Fall Apart. And she talks in that book about starting practice, about relating it to a time that she was visiting India. And at night, there were all these stray dogs all over the area where she was that were just barking all night long barking. And every now and then, there would be a few moments when it would stop. And then it would start up again. And she compared that to what the experience of her mind was when we first started practicing, right? So we need the instruction of following our breath to keep coming back to this moment, to stop the sound of those dogs barking. And in a nutshell, I think that's what all form is. It's essentially what everything that we do is. It's a way to bring us back to right now. I mean, when the bell rings, and in between, right, so we have Kinhen as this wonderful, way of bringing what we've been doing on the cushion and starting to bring it into action, right? So we first start to bring our breath into the footsteps. So each time we breathe a full cycle, right? And then the clacks happen, and then we start to walk. So what happens to your mind then? What happens to your mind when the bell rings before Kinhen starts? And then what happens when you leave the Kinhen line, and all of a sudden you're walking in the hallway, and even though you're looking down, there's people walking by. What happens then? What's going on in your mind when we are in a service? Like, oh my God, bowing again, chanting again, 3 times a day. It's a way to bring us back to now, and when we get off the cushion, it's a way to bring us back to now, together, with each other. I mean, are you aware of how we are together when we bow? Are you aware of where you are when you're getting up from the bow? Are you aware of where you are before you sit down at Oryoki? And then there's Oryoki, is this whole thing in itself. So I think the point is that in many ways there's absolutely no meaning to our forms. We just do it. You just do it. It's worked for thousands of years, and it's changing. So it's constantly changing. I mean, I think that we would be horrified if we went to a monastery in Japan and saw what they were doing. It's really, we've really molded our form to start to fit our culture and our way of life. So just do it. Just do it and use it as a reminder of where you are and who's around you. I want to tell a story about something that happened to me that I think relates to this. And apologies if anybody heard my last talk, because I'm going to repeat a story, but I think it's very relevant. It's a Sesshin story. So some years ago, I was the cook for a retreat at the Grail House where we used to do our summer retreats. And where the cook would sit, it was a bizarre zendo room because it was asymmetrical, and there was only one row on this side, and 2 rows on this side, and one and like a quarter of a row on this side. And so the cook would sit in the back, in between the monitor and the jikido. And so there was this one retreat in particular where the jikido was having some issues playing the bells during Jundo. You know, at the end, when Roshi comes around and greets us in the morning, and then the last thing is there's a bow at the Hashiki, and then that's the first bong. And then comes to the seat, bong, bong. Those are the 3 bongs. that are required from the Jikido at that moment. And let's say the first couple days it wasn't really happening. And the monitor wasn't really doing too much to correct it at the moment, so I'd be like, bong, bong. And I kept doing this, and so during one of the breaks, the monitor pulled me aside and said, you know, please don't do that. It's my job, and I want to take care of it. You know, please stay in your lane. Something we've heard a lot this week, 2 weeks, stay in your lane. So I was like, okay, you're right, I know. So the next morning comes, and sitting there, and Roshi comes in, she's making her rounds, and she's getting to the end of the line, and she's coming around up to the Shiki, and I could just see out of the corner of my eyes, the Jikido is in a deep samadhi. I was like, oh shit. And then I look over to my other side, and the monitor is also in samadhi. So she's getting closer. I'm just BOOM! And at that moment, the monitor just very softly put her hand on my knee. And that was a very direct teaching. It was firm, yet soft. It wasn't a hit, it wasn't a smack, and it wasn't like, you know, it was like, I told you not to do that. And I was, you know, it's inside, I was like, I know, I couldn't help myself. But I would like to offer us that image, the very soft, firm and soft hand on the knee. That's all form need be. It just brings us back. So anytime it feels off or wrong, just let it be that. Just let that, think of that. I was thinking of that this morning as I was freaking out about this talk. And on the knee. So I got to talk about Vimalakirti. So something I found interesting, last night as Shinryu Roshi was exiting, he gave us a reminder from Fusho's talk to keep our practice ordinary and that it should be nothing fancy. And then I went up into my room and I opened the Vimalakirti Sutra and I was like, huh? I hate to say it, but for me, the sutra is not very Zen at all. Even though it's told through the perspective of an ordinary man, but this ordinary man has transcendental powers that he can show thousands of bodhisattvas the heavenly land of many fragrances and ultimately save 100,000 living beings and give them unexcelled perfect enlightenment. You know, it's an ordinary guy. It's not the Zen response of a shit stick or 3 pounds of flax. Direct. It's very fancy and not ordinary at all. So I'm going to relate this to something, one of my heroes, Dizzy Gillespie, the great jazz trumpeter, who helped found the bebop movement, which was kind of a direct response to the pop music that jazz had become. And so he was kind of one of the figures who was rebelling against that. And Dizzy was very famous for saying that it's very important for us to always keep a foot in the past and a foot in the present. We always have to hold on to the tradition. And I think that's something that really connects a lot for our practice. But the interesting thing is that, we can say that Louis Armstrong was kind of regarded as the founder of jazz. He was like the first the first person that they say codified what jazz became. And Dizzy Gillespie did not like Louis Armstrong. He didn't. I think that he had reverence for him, and he realized the importance. But his guy was I forgot his name right now. I should have written it down. But it was someone else who was a little bit closer and a little bit closer to his time. So I kind of feel like Dizzy does when I look at this sutra. I had a very hard time connecting with it because of how ornamented it was and how fancy it was and how unordinary it was. But in the first day, Shunryu Roshi invited us to, even if we feel that way, look through it and see where's there something, a tidbit that sticks out for you. And there were two things that I wanted to speak of that stuck out for me. So one had to do with the difference in the translations. So I had originally read the Watson translation many years ago, and that's the one that I had. And so I decided to kind of skim through the Thurman version, and there was this one very interesting, I thought, difference in translation, and it was from the second chapter when Vimalakirti is introduced. In the Thurman version, he writes, he was praised, honored, and commended by all the Buddhas, and was respected by Indra, Brahma, and all of the Lokapalas. In the Watson version, he says, all the Buddhas sighed with admiration. And he commanded the respect of the disciples of Indra, Brahma, and the four heavenly kings. So this to me felt like a koan, where the answer is Vimalakirti. I love that sigh. I think that sigh adds a lot. What did it really mean? I was also wondering, they sighed with admiration. Was it because they all, like, none of them wanted to go see him, right? They were like, oh, please. Every time Buddha was like, you gotta go see him, they're all like, please, I really don't want to see him. Or was it like, Vimalakirti? I found that interesting. But the one part that cut through for me, and still cuts through for me, was what Vimalakirti's response was to how do bodhisattvas enter the Dharma gate of non-duality, right? And his response was to be silent. And that tasted a little bit like Zen to me. I think that's something even that we could see the evolution as this went through the years and years and made its way to China. We see a lot of silent responses. I was reminded yesterday in Daisan with a koan about the teacher who the student goes to and says, teacher, everyone is waiting to get a Dharma lesson. You haven't spoken so long. Would you please ascend the Dharma seat and speak to us? And he was like, okay. And he called everyone in, and he ascended the Dharma seat. He sat there for a while, and then he got down and walked away. So it's something to me that cut through and reminded me of the things that hooked me into Zen. Ordinary mind is the way. In the sutra, I feel that I don't want to say it gets ruined, but right, it's like, how long was that silence, first of all? It doesn't say how long that silence was. Before Manjushri comes in and says, excellent, excellent, noble sir. This is indeed the entrance into the non-duality of the Bodhisattvas. Here, there was no use for syllables, sounds, and ideas. And it just made me think, if Rinzai was there, he would have grabbed him and be like, you imbecile, what's so excellent? How would you know about anything non-dualistic? So, have you all entered the gate of non-duality this week? What dualistic things have you noticed coming up for you on the cushion? What have you noticed about yourself swimming in the world of right and wrong, good and bad? Do you notice that? Do you notice it in Oryoki? What's going on in Oryoki? Are you kind of freaking out, trying to keep up? Are you sitting there saying, look at how fast I can wrap my bowls? What happens when you miss something or when you get something wrong? What's going on? What's your inner dialogue? Or what is your inner dialogue about yourself? What is your inner dialogue about others? Do you elevate yourself? Do you elevate others? Are you competing? Do you win? Do you lose? Do you condemn yourself or others? I feel, to me, that inner dialogue is a lot like all of the many responses that came from all the myriad bodhisattvas who all answered the question first. What does it mean to enter the gate of non-duality? You know, bodhisattvas like lion will, inexhaustible will. Actually, and this is all from the Watson. So the Watson translation, the Thurman one has the Indian names, but the Watson one, I think, translates them in some very interesting names, like Virtue Storehouse, Wonderful Arm. And I feel like, you know, in the Zen way of looking at it, that's all the blah, 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 blah. That's what's happening in our minds all the time, right? All of the rights and wrongs, the goods and bads, the judgments, and the ways that we beat ourselves up, and maybe, I don't know, what we do to others. The person across from you who's not getting it, not doing it right. So what happens when those moments arise for you? I think that it's very easy to just get swept away by those voices and by those experiences and forget where you are. Really, I mean, it's just like a head trip. And when does it end? When does it begin? And when does it end? When does it arise? And when does it go away? Can we just observe what happens in our minds? And maybe bring that silence in, that marvelous silence that I think we've been feeling all week. This has been one of the most silent sessions I can remember. It's a lot to do with the fact that there's a lot of old timers here. We've been down this road before. So it kind of felt like from the moment that first bell hit on Saturday night, it was just like, so is it possible to bring that in to your practice when you notice these things arise? You know, Miyoko told us to be curious and gentle with those things. Instead of engaging it, just take a step back and observe it. Observe who you are and what you do. That we don't even realize so much of the time. And that we have this amazing opportunity here. After all these days, it's like you can't not, right? It's just like you can't hide from it anymore. Can you bring that silence, or maybe that solid yet soft hand to the knee when those voices start to come in your mind? The voices that are attacking yourself. Bring that hand to the knee. Oh, here I am. I'm with my Sangha in my practice. So, as Shuso told us this morning, we are kind of coming to the final days here. But it hasn't ended. So I want to encourage us to keep going. And I think this image of firm yet delicate, solid yet soft, if we can remain solid and let ourselves sink deeper, touch that softness even more, and instead of like trying to like turn up some kind of fire or force it, just kind of let go and let yourself sink deeper and see where we can go. How far can you go in the silence? And if you need some kind of help, just put that soft hand